This is Devin Kraft from the Science Faction Podcast. You're listening to the BS Podcast Network. Enjoy the show.
You got a set of wheels you just won't quit, boy. If there's yours, that is. You spin around, boy. 10 fingers on the fender. Legs apart. I'm sure this ain't exactly your debut with this sort of thing. You picked the wrong parish to haul ass through, boy. Nobody cuts and runs on Chef J.W. Pepper. And it's him speaking, by the by. There's a son of a bitch, I got him! What are you? Some kind of doomsday machine, boy? Well, we got a cage strong enough to hold an animal like you here.
Captain, would you enlighten the sheriff, please?
Yes, sir. J.W., let me have a word with you. J.W., now this fellow's from London, England. He's an Englishman working in cooperation with our boys, a sort of secret agent.
Secret agent? On whose side?
What are you?
I'm Batman.
Who are you?
My name is Bond.
Bond.
I'm Batman.
Name's Bond.
James Bond.
I'm Batman.
Bond. James Bond. I'm Batman. I'm Batman.
This is the Batman vs. James Bond show. The show covering everything related to Batman and James Bond movies. And now, here's your host, Brian Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to an all-new episode of the Batman vs. James Bond show. The name's Thomas, Brian Thomas, and I am your host. And this is the show where we discuss everything related to Batman and James Bond movies. It is great to be back. I hope all of you have had a fantastic week. Mine was excellent. Not only is it Easter, but, and happy Easter, everybody. I can't believe I'm recording on Easter, and, I feel... Well, I went to church the night before, don't worry, and, I did pay my, I did say some extra prayers and so forth for those of you that do celebrate Easter, but I'm also working overtime this weekend because I have a very special guest. He is the owner and creator of what I consider one of the best replica James Bond clothings out there. On the line via Skype right now from Royale Filmwear is Mr. Daniel Love. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Well, thank you very much, Brian. I'm very, very well. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you. I'm a big fan of the podcast.
Thank you.
And happy Easter as well.
Happy Easter to you. I know we talked before the show on the pre-show, and I'm just like, I didn't realize when I set this up. I'm like, you're like, happy Easter. I'm like, no. And then I see over, because there's a lot of people on social media and I know you're on social media as well for Royale Filmwear, and everybody's posting their octopusy pictures of Roger Moore with the golden egg, Fabergé egg, and I'm like, it's Easter and I'm recording. It's Easter, I'm recording. Okay. Yep, it is Easter. But I'm so excited. We have a lot to talk about. I'm going to be, well, like I said, no pop quizzes, nothing, nothing crazy. Don't worry. But we are going to be talking a lot more specifically about James Bond. But before we jump into things, just a reminder, BatmanVSBond.com. That's right. You know the name. Go there for all the latest shows and more content. You can also find the Batman vs. James Bond show on the BS Podcast Network. That's bspodcastnetwork.com. Find my show and a whole bunch of other great shows on there. Now, let's get down to business. Before we really get to talking, like I said to Daniel, just to get a little bit of background about you, I have a few questions. I usually do this when a guest is online, so, don't worry. First of all, what is your favorite James Bond movie? I can't wait to hear this.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to be completely unoriginal here,
okay.
and that is to say Casino Royale.
All right.
Now, the reason I say that is because that's what got me into Bond.
All right.
I've always loved the old movies. Of course, loved the Sean Connery movies. Watched all the old Roger Moore movies as a kid and so on. But growing up, Pierce Brosnan was Pierce Brosnan's tenure, and while I think while I really liked Pierce Brosnan as a James Bond, just couldn't really warm to the movies themselves.
Yeah.
And so from that perspective, I had friends who were James Bond fans during the Pierce Brosnan era.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he was great. Brosnan was great as a Bond. But it was just something about the movies. Maybe they weren't realistic enough or something.
Mm-hmm.
And, invisible cars and so on. But
yeah.
But then Casino Royale comes along, and that was really refreshing for me. So I saw the realism in it, and I'm the sort of guy that does gravitate towards a non-fiction novel. So, I like things that are a bit more grounded in reality, more than anything. So, that for me is Casino. It has to be Casino.
Good choice. Yeah. Growing up with the Pierce Brosnan movies, I always say first movie I saw of a James Bond was GoldenEye, and GoldenEye still obviously holds a certain place in my heart. I'm pointing to the poster behind me. One of my favorites. When Casino Royale came out in theaters, and it's like, wow, you stripped Bond of everything, but it's so, the stunts were amazing. The acting, that's something I think that a lot of people forget, is that, no offense to Sean Connery, Roger Moore, George Lazenby, Timothy Dalton, what have you, but the acting was just like, wow, this is what a Bond movie can be, and we've never been introduced to something like this. You've had Judi Dench there the whole time, and I mentioned this before. She's one of the greatest actresses we've had, in not just a Bond movie, but just in general. She, Dame Judi Dench. She is her reputation procedure. But her little comments, and she kind of brought the humor aspect to it also in there. And have you ever seen such a bunch of sniveling, ass kissing, whatever in there? And I love that. I really do. Christ, I miss the Cold War. Things like that. You've got a bloody cheek. I could go on quoting that all night. But the everything in there. Sure. You have the martini in there. You have the Aston Martin in there. You have the tuxedo scene, which for any of the Daniel haters, and I think you remember this when that came out, it was a really bad time. And I was open to it. I'm like, well, I've never been through this. I've never been through the transition of a new James Bond. It was kind of odd.
Well, I guess that's probably where I took the ownership of it as being, Daniel Craig's Bond is the Bond that, I really liked, because he was introduced, he was the new Bond and so on. So it was sort of, I was around when that sort of took place.
Yeah.
But as someone like me who's read the books, I've read all the Fleming books. Mm-hmm. And so you look at Daniel Craig's Bond, and it's bang on, really, what you see and read in the books, So from that perspective, I think that's what was lacking, was they had strayed so far away from the books. Mm-hmm. And so without panning the other Bonds, that's not how I feel at all. They all have brilliant aspects of what they did. Mm-hmm. But I think Daniel Craig just really went back to the Fleming material. Yeah. Which is, what I really connected with. So.
Right. And that's the beauty of the Fleming books. I know the producers have always said that they always have the books to go back to. So, and especially when you're rebooting the James Bond franchise, you're starting off scratch. Casino Royale was brilliant, and it was one of the smartest movies they've ever done. So this will probably lead into the next question here. Who is your favorite James Bond actor? Is it Danny Boy?
Okay. Well, you know what? That's a tough one.
There is no wrong answer. No, it's okay.
No. I probably have to say Sean Connery. Just because, as much as I love Daniel Craig, and I'm a huge fan of this series of movies, the reboot and so on. And it's pretty much a dead tie for me, like between Daniel Craig and Sean Connery, because every time I go back and I watch the Connery movies, I'm just like, there's whatever it is, there's just some sort of presence that Connery has.
Yeah.
And he's not entirely accurate to what's in the books, but he brings this cheekiness to the role and so on. And this guy is one smooth cat with the ladies, so I'm watching this, and I'm always so entertained by the Sean Connery movies. So it probably is still Connery for me, but I'm very pleased that Daniel Craig came along to take the reins. When I got into Bond. So.
Yep. Yeah. You can't go wrong with Sean Connery at all, and I think it's up in it. Yeah, I go back as often as I can to watch the Sean Connery James Bond movie, and I mean I have my favorites. But just something about him and the ladies, he just
yeah, absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
He could be. I just think when he goes up in Goldfinger to Jill Masterson, and she's just laying there, and all of a sudden he just picks her up there, steals her from Goldfinger, technically, and the next day, or like a couple hours later, they're just laying in bed and drinking some champagne. It's like, my man, really, just like, wow, this guy. Yeah, or when he's when he meets Felix again in Goldfinger, and he's say, hey Felix, say hello to Dink, and Dink, say goodbye to Felix. Gotta go, honey. Man talk. Slaps her in the butt. I'm like, wow. You can't do that nowadays, that's for sure. Not a chance. Nope.
Things have changed.
Yeah, things have slightly changed, yes. All right, let's move on into a few more questions here. Do you have a favorite Batman film? I believe you are a Batman fan.
Oh, I am. I am a huge Batman fan. Now, as we spoke pre-show, it's a bit like Casino Royale for me. The Dark Knight trilogy is it. Before that, yeah, okay, I was a bit of a Batman fan, but the Dark Knight trilogy in particular, that's what did it. It's Batman Begins, and then all of a sudden you're away and you see the development of the character from sort of day one of Batman being created. It's sort of like Casino with James Bond getting his 00 license. So it's
right.
It's the initiation of the character, the beginnings of the character. So huge Dark Knight fan, and of course you've got Heath Ledger in there, and you've got Tom Hardy, huge Tom Hardy fan as well. So. There's not a lot of bad points really with Christopher Nolan directing. So
yeah, there's always been rumors out there that Nolan would eventually possibly direct a Bond movie. He was they approached him. Tom Hardy's still being rumored because we have no idea right now. I mean, there's on my last episode I talked about there's a possibility that they're persuading Daniel Craig to come back. Personally, of course, I'd love to see him go at one more chance, and only if he really wants to do it. Don't do it just for the money. But
yes,
Tom Hardy, that would be an interesting James Bond to see. I think he could do it, but I'm trying to think of how old Tom Hardy is right now. I'd say he's under 40.
No, he's not.
No,
Tom Hardy is actually older than you think.
Really? He's in good shape.
Absolutely. He's in brilliant shape.
Yes.
And as I said, I'm a huge Tom Hardy fan. And anybody who's seen Legend, you look at him in Legend and whatever, and you think, well, this guy could certainly play Bond. But being a Tom Hardy fan, like I've YouTubed Tom Hardy's performances in different movies, that guy is versatile. He is unbelievable with some of the roles that he's taken on over the years. So undoubtedly he would do a brilliant job of his tenure as Bond. That's unquestionable, I think. But whether he's the right choice, I don't really know.
Yeah.
But I tend to agree with you with Daniel Craig coming back. He has to come back for the right reasons. I guess my concern there is that with Spectre in particular, I feel that they wrapped everything up a little bit too neatly.
Yeah, me too.
And so I think they were possibly producing that thinking he's not going to come back. Sort of the way that I got it is they just wrapped all of the Daniel Craig era subject lines and stories up very neatly at the end of Spectre. So.
Yeah, I know that. I mean, the writers always talk that they had a different ending for that Neil Purvis and Robert Wade. That that wasn't the ending that they end up using. I guess, like you said, maybe they figured, okay, well, if this is his last one because he isn't getting any younger, and he had a contract for that many movies. I worry, and I think I've said this on the show before, that I don't want it to be a Sean Connery of him just coming back kind of like he feels like, okay, well, I'm coming back for the paycheck, and what else do I really have going on? I have my feelings about Diamonds Are Forever. It's actually one of my least favorite Bond movies, and I just feel like it's Sean, and I love Sean Connery, and I still can go back and watch it, and I still enjoy him as that. It just, maybe it's how it was written, maybe it's the story he was given, maybe I wanted that sequel to On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which we never got, and I still wish that could happen, maybe with Daniel Craig's next movie of Spectre. Maybe they can kind of intertwine that in a way. Still, I want, of course, I'm eager, but I want them to get it right. And we saw how long it took between the gap of Quantum of Solace 2008 to Skyfall in 2012. To me, 4 years was worth it. So if that's how long it's going to take, by all means, I want them to make the best Bond movie they can. So not just write something quickly because they have to. So.
But as you said, as much as we love Daniel Craig, he isn't getting any younger. So.
No, but that man's got some style. He really does. And you, of all people, know that. Yeah. So now let's talk about your site, Royal Filmwear. Some incredible clothing items on there. I know people can't see the webcam on Skype right now, but I'm foaming at the mouth with what's on there because there's a few of them that I still want right now. I know that they're not available.
Yes. Sorry about that. I am teasing a bit, aren't I? You
are teasing me, and I'm trying to tease you with my Batman suit. It's probably it's not quite the same, but I'm going to do my best here. I do, however, own 2 of your jackets, and the one is the Quantum Harrington jacket. This is the one that was shown at the climax of the film of Quantum of Solace. Daniel Craig is doing what he does best, rocking 5 different outfits throughout the whole movie. This one happens to be this amazing blue Quantum Harrington jacket, and he wears it with the blue polo jeans and boots, and he's getting ready to take down Dominic Green, and he's doing it with style. He's dressed down, no tuxedo whatsoever. Love this jacket. One of the first products I bought from you, and the most recent product I bought from you was the Quantum Haiti jacket, which Bond, we'll say, borrowed, took from Mr. Slate after he met his untimely demise. As you said, he came to a dead end. And yeah, he came to a dead end. And, the jackets are different, but they're similar in a way. And I guess maybe it's the material, so forth. But with I'm not a clothing expert. I'm not even going to pretend to be. And that's why I have you on here to talk about it. But I just want to say, on behalf of the majority of the Bond fans out there that I know try to dress like if people can cosplay for Batman, then people like to dress like James Bond, and it's way easier. And you can do it on a budget. Also, you don't have to, as much as we all want to have the Tom Ford brands, the Persols out there, and whatever else, or the white Levi's that you can't even find out there anymore. There are plenty of alternatives. And what's so great about Royal Filmwear, about your company, is that there are many alternatives, and you do replicas that look almost exactly like what's in the films, and the products are they really are incredible. I know John from Iconic Alternatives, he's a huge fan of yours. David from the Bond Experience is a huge fan. He's talked about it on his vlog before. Robert
great guy.
Oh, I've never had a chance to speak to him personally, but I can't wait to talk to him eventually. I want to pick his brain. I know that if I have a bat cave, he has the whole Q Branch Labs in his office or in his basement. I have no idea. I'd love to know where he got some of his things. Great guy, though. And Robert Sterling from Online Universal Exports, he is a huge fan. He said to say hi to you also. Like I said, we're all huge fans. We love what you do. And let me begin by asking, how did you come up with the idea? How did it all come about?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you very much, Brian, for mentioning some of those things. I do get some very nice emails from guys who are very appreciative of the alternatives that we offer. Mm-hmm. So it's always nice to get that feedback, and it certainly makes it all very much worthwhile. Mm-hmm. So how did it all start? Well, it all started with the Harrington jacket that you mentioned.
Yeah,
that was the first one, and I was one of those guys who sifted through all of the local stores and online and so on, and tried to just get something that was similar or close enough, Mm-hmm. Then the more that I sort of looked at the details, I realized, well, these aren't really close at all.
No.
You know, even if they're just sort of, even if it was a Harrington jacket, it was still nothing like the Harrington jacket that was in the film. And then I looked at, you know, well, who else is potentially producing these? And there was at least one other replica at the time, but I still wasn't convinced that was accurate enough for me. So anyway, I started to look into it, and I decided to boldly, might I add, I decided that the cheapest way of getting one of these jackets for myself was to make a few of them, and then I could sell the others and sort of get my money back or whatever. So that way I could get my jacket for free, and that's kind of how it started, really.
All right. I like that.
With the Harrington in particular.
Okay. So, I know you're a big fan of Casino Royale, and I'm probably jumping ahead here because I know what you're wearing right now, and it looks like it's what I believe it could be being released this upcoming May. I know that you said you had that urge to dress like James Bond. I'm definitely guilty of trying to do that. I'll never, as much as I will try to, you know, look like Bond or whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, as a Bond fan, we all want to, you know, we can sip the martini, we want to dress like Bond, but we know it's all in good fun and so forth. But
of course.
Was this like the first time that you started dressing? You know, you had that urge. I mean, was it Casino Royale or was it Quantum of Solace? I guess because of the style in there.
Well, I think. For me, Casino Royale is my favorite Daniel Craig film.
Mm-hmm.
However, that being said, there was I think a huge shift in the style with Quantum.
Yeah.
You know, when Tom Ford came on board, all of a sudden Bond just became much more fashionable.
Mm-hmm.
And it was sort of, you know, there isn't a bad outfit in Quantum.
Mm-mm.
And everything's well tailored and so on. And so I became much more aware of how clothes fit is so much more important.
Mm-hmm.
You know, look, as much as I love Casino Royale, I do look at those flares that he's wearing, you know, when he's wearing the Sunspell as well. I'm like, oh, I had a pair of flares back in 2006. How did they make a comeback?
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's, as they say, it's so old, it's new again.
Right.
Yeah, with Quantum in particular, it just become so much more fashionable. And yeah, you pointed towards the cardigan that I'm wearing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wearing this is just one of my go-to. You know, it's not, there's nothing screen accurate about it, but it's a shawl collar cardigan,
Mm-hmm.
and that to me it's very much a personal style favorite of mine. In the cooler months, and we you know, in Australia we don't have, you know, too many cool months, but it's sort of, at the moment it's sort of cool in the mornings, so I'm wearing the shawl collar cardigan.
Right.
That's and yes, as you alluded to, that is upcoming.
Okay.
Hopefully late May, but
Awesome.
that could change.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I know, at least me anyway. And I know there's a lot of people online. The more I've been doing the show, I find that a lot of people do really like the style of James Bond, specifically Daniel Craig's James Bond. As you mentioned, Quantum of Solace, something about, not everybody loves the movie, but we can all agree that the style of when Tom Ford came in there, when whoever the costume designer with that, whoever decided that maybe Daniel was having more input on there. I know that his grandfather was a tailor. I mean, he mentioned in an interview last fall.
Yes.
And he, like I said, he's got impeccable taste. He really does. When it comes to the style, I mean, I've been a fan with Pierce Brosnan. I tried emulating some of his outfits before, specifically from The World Is Not Enough. I always go back to this. There's, at the very end of The World Is Not Enough, there is a blue button-down kind of, it's not like quite a royal blue, but anyway, he's wearing that with a cream color suit. I can't wear a cream color suit because I was only in high school at the time, so I take the blue shirt and I'm wearing it with khakis, and everybody's looking at me like, what are you doing? Why are you dressing like that? We don't have to wear a uniform here. Everybody else is showing up in hoodies and t-shirts and so forth, and here I am trying to look like Bond. When Die Another Day came out, who bought the black turtleneck? This guy did, you know. So it's not been since just Daniel Craig. It's been more as I've been getting older, and now I guess maybe I'm at the appropriate age where it's like, okay, now you can start dressing like a 30-something spy because you are in your 30s. So
yeah. There's something good about that, isn't it? You get that a little bit more maturity, and
right?
So, like, I never thought I'd be a cardigan guy. I'm just going to say this. So, but then Daniel Craig busts out this cardigan in Quantum of Solace, and then I'm a huge fan of David Zaritsky of the Bond Experience. Shout out there.
Mm-hmm.
But David was doing vlogs on how Daniel Craig's Bond is very influenced by Steve McQueen.
Right.
And so, and as soon as I saw that, I'm like, wow, that is so true. And I started to look at it, and Steve McQueen, obviously this cool cat from generations past.
Yeah. And
once I sort of thought, okay, the cardigan thing, it's not just an old man thing.
Mm-mm.
It isn't. It comes down to I think it comes down to a certain confidence as well. And so I rock the cardigan at just about every opportunity, really. And
yeah, I know I try to rock the cardigan when it's hard to do it when I'm out with my wife because she's like, why are you dressed like an old man? And I'm like, I'm not dressed like an old man. I'll show her the picture I'll show her the picture from Bond. I'm like, Daniel Craig can do this. She's like, okay, whatever, just do it. And I'm wearing it to work, and I'm trying to do the Quantum of Solace, the black cardigan with the white button down and khakis, and I'm like, yeah, check me out. I'm like, all right, well, nobody's going to get it but me. But at the same time, I don't know if it brings out a confidence or it makes you feel like the character in a way, but it just I can't explain it to, and I know only certain people do understand that, and I think you're definitely one of those people that do.
Well, so. Yeah, with the cardigan in particular, I've tried it a couple of times with a white button-up shirt, and it doesn't really work for me. So I always, well, typically speaking, I'll wear a cardigan with like a white V-neck, which is what I'm wearing now. Yeah. Or a white crew neck or whatever, just a white T-shirt underneath, and that to me is much more my style. So, obviously, we all want to emulate Bond, but I think you also have to add your own little bit of style to it as well. So
I agree. Yeah, definitely.
And that helps you own the look, I think, a little bit more, and so certainly a look that I like.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, even with your jackets, though, I mean, I know that a lot of people, including myself, we try to or specifically duplicate the outfit that Daniel Craig wore. The Harrington jacket, the Y3 jacket, the Haiti jacket, things like that. But the jackets can be worn with pretty much anything. I got the jacket when it came out maybe 2-3 weeks ago, I guess, give or take. And of course, I've worn it with the blue polo and the white Levi's jeans that I have. And, but I've worn it just even to work and, wearing that with just business casual clothing, and it works. And that's the great thing about these jackets, the articles of clothing that you've created. I mean, they do suit a Bond fan, but they do suit, a little bit of everything else also. So I want to make sure I said that to you. Yeah,
they're quite cool, and with the Haiti jacket in particular. Ultimately, it's a black jacket, and I'm one of the guys who, I sort of looked at it, and I sort of wondered what all the fuss was about with it. But, I mean, typically speaking, I produce things that I want myself, but it sort of took me a little bit of time to warm to the Haiti jacket. And then the more that I looked at it, I'm like, no, this is really cool.
Yeah.
This goes with everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sort of had to produce that one as well. So sort of once it came along, it actually quickly became the jacket that I wore the most.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, and like you just said, it went with everything. So it's the one that you tend to throw on at a moment's notice, and you don't really have to consider what else you're wearing, really. So
right. Yeah, I know it is. It's springtime here. It was about give or take 70 degrees yesterday. But I'm like, you know what? I'm going to bring this out. It's nighttime, and it was beautiful during the day. At nighttime, it was maybe a little chilly. And I'm like, this works perfectly, and it really doesn't matter. And even during the summer, my wife's from Puerto Rico, and I can go over. It's pretty much summer over there all the time. But I still found myself wearing the Harrington jacket at the time there, and and here I am thinking, I'm like, all right, where's Dominic Green? Let me go find some Quantum. But no, I love the jackets. I really do. I will say, I know that you produced was it the Skyfall or the Casino Royale mankini, I guess, or what's it called? The Daniel Craig bathing suit that we all wish we were as buff. Yeah.
No, I yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
No, the mankini, I like that.
Yeah. What is it called then? It's not a Speedo, but yeah.
I'd still call them swimming trunks.
Okay.
But the ones from Casino Royale, no, I didn't see those. They're like a spandex. They're like, they leave nothing to the imagination.
No.
Whereas the ones that I've done are from Skyfall. And so they're the Skyfall swim shorts, and they're a bit more classic 60s style. You know, they're cut and so on, and they're that nice baby blue sort of color.
Right.
So they're kind of cool, but they're so harken back to, you know, the 60s and Sean Connery and that very much that sort of style. So they're a little bit more conservative, shall we say?
Yes.
Compared to the spandex ones in Casino Royale. I just couldn't ever see myself wearing them. So, you know, I do tend to gravitate towards stuff that I'm going to wear myself. So.
Yeah, I would say I'm more of a board shorts kind of guy, and I'm sure Daniel Craig, you know, now that he's gotten older, he's probably wearing more board shorts, maybe not so much those kind of bathing suits. But if to all the listeners out there, if you can wear those, then more power to you, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let me ask you this. If we're talking Bond style, I know that Daniel Craig is definitely probably up there with having one of the best Bond styles, but who do you feel it would be? Sean Connery? Do you think Daniel Craig? Who has the best Bond style? So maybe even Roger Moore. I know Roger Moore had his own style, especially for the 70s and late 80s.
You know, I would have to go with Daniel again on this, but I'm going to go a little bit left field as well and say that George Lazenby had a great style. You know, you looked at him, he had, at that period in time, had very well-tailored suits. And so he was wearing things which were slim, but without being tight. And so I think certainly in terms of the suits, he had a fantastic style, an amazing screen presence because of that. Not so much the kilt.
I was just thinking about the kilt. I really was thinking about that kilt, you know.
Probably that's not what I had in mind when I said that. But, you know, I think he did have a great style as well at the time. But I think ultimately I have to land on Daniel Craig again because that's, you know, the guy just in his personal life is one of the best dressed men out there. You know, best dressed for sure. So, and anybody who is sort of is capturing that Steve McQueen sort of style, the King of Cool sort of style, well, they've got to be up there, haven't they? So,
yeah, I agree. I know, like, even recently, Daniel Craig, he's like doing his, just doing interviews and so forth. We're all looking at it. It's like, what is he wearing? He's wearing this jacket and just a t-shirt. How do we get that look? And, you know, it's just,
I know that's next level for me. Like I haven't even did some of that stuff. But,
yeah. I'm like, well, I can only calm my wife into letting me buy so much stuff and so much amount of time or whatever. So,
it has to actually be Bond related.
What's that?
Not just, it has to actually be Bond related, not just Daniel Craig related.
Yeah, it does. And you know that the look of some of his styles in the movie. This brings me to my next question: do you have an article of clothing or a style of his that is your particular favorite? Especially Daniel Craig seems to be your favorite, and it doesn't matter if it's Casino Royale all the way up to Spectre.
No. Well, look, I am going to land back on the cardigan because, as I've said, you know, I wear them all the time. I'm just going to give you a funny little story on this as well. Guys out there, like as I said, I never thought I'd be a cardigan guy. And then when I actually, you know, got a well-fitting cardigan or a couple of them, and the fit is very important. I started to realize how differently women respond to me when I'm wearing a cardigan.
Really?
Now, I'm a single guy, so I'm sort of, I'm always on for a bit of a chat or whatever, but if I'm not, you know, wearing the cardigan, I can probably come across as a bit standoffish, something like that. But if I'm in a cardigan, whatever it is, I don't know. It must exude a certain confidence, or you all of a sudden you look so much more approachable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's got a lot to do with it. Like 9 times out of 10, when I go out and I'm wearing a shawl collar cardigan, I'll have much better interactions with women. It's just the way of things. I don't know what it is, but so that's a little life hack there, really.
All right, so gentlemen, make note. When the cardigan comes out in May, if you are single, this will help and possibly increase your chances of scoring a number with a lovely young lady.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, that cardigan, I liked how they brought it back from Casino Royale. I know we did have a chance to see that. He wore it 2 different times at Casino Royale. When he was at the casino specifically, or went right before the casino scene anyway, and at the very end of the movie when he's on the sailboat. Yeah, kind of like how you're wearing it right now, like you said, the cardigan with the white t-shirt and some khakis, and it's just it's very laid back, but it's just it screams sophisticated. It really does. And I wish that I would have had more of a chance to wear my cardigan this year. And I think I'm going to probably have, because summer's approaching very fast. It was in the 80s today. So I'm going to guess that I'm not going to really be able to get to wear a cardigan too much longer, if at all. But I will be wearing my Haiti jacket a lot more at night, as often as I can anyway. Yes, I definitely will be. I know you talked about like how you came up with the idea you wanted your own jacket. Can you talk about the process a little bit, how that works at all? Or?
Yeah, sure. It has evolved a bit over this period of time. Been at this for about 5 years now. So
okay.
It's a long process. Start to finish, it's a long process. Usually it's around 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
I first decide I want to produce an item to actually having it available and being able to sell it. I'll talk you through it. So basically, the initial process is sourcing materials. So, this is forgetting, that I've collected all the information, the photos that I need, and so on.
Yeah.
So that's all. I don't include that in the time. But once I've got all of the images or all of the details that I need, I source the material. So that could take up to a month probably by the time you find something on the other side of the world.
Mm-hmm.
and have it shipped and so on. And then you realize it's not right, so you buy something else.
Right.
So it takes about a month to pull together all the materials. That's down to buttons and zippers and everything.
Oh, wow.
And then from there, what I'll do is, I guess step number 2 would be to actually produce the design. So I've got a rough idea, but it's not until I actually sit down at a sewing machine and put it together
mm-hmm.
that you start to realize, okay, that works, that doesn't work, that's not quite right, we need to change that. And so step number 2 was really is me mocking up a design. Now I say mocking up a design because ultimately it's not something you could go out and wear.
Right.
So that very first design phase is pretty rough, and it is rough. It's a patchwork
mm-hmm.
of ideas and changes, right? So that takes time, So you've easily got probably 4 or 5 weeks there as well. So in getting this mock up to a stage where, okay, I'm now happy with the raw design. So after that, what I'll do is I'll send that off to my manufacturer with a whole load of samples, fabric samples and so on, and usually about 2 pages of comments. And so comments referring to this, that, and maybe we could change this or make that fabric a little bit heavier, or this needs to be, this is good, but perhaps it could be a bit longer, or whatever it is. And so that's, there's easily a couple of months gone there. Usually takes about 30 days for my manufacturer to come through with the initial sample,
mm-hmm.
which I don't know how he does it in that time, to be honest, because having gotten a product and then having to then go out and then source the same or similar materials to what I've used, and so on, like that's a pretty astounding effort, really, to
mm-hmm.
produce a sample in about a month. And that's the initial sample. Now, sorry, this is quite a monologue here. I know.
No. I'm very fascinated by this, and I know others are.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, it is, like I say, it's a long process, so it does need a bit of explaining. So once I've got the initial sample back, there's two ways it can go. Either I'm really happy with it, and maybe there's one or two changes. In that case, we'll go to production. Mm-hmm. But more often than not, there could be up to a dozen changes still to that initial sample. Mm-hmm. Because like I say, what I first produce is actually is pretty rough. I'm not a tailor, but I've learned tailoring on the fly, so to speak. So my skills behind a sewing machine are somewhat limited, but that being said, I've got a good grasp of what I'm doing these days. So with that first sample that we've got, if there's any more than a handful of changes, we'll then actually go and produce a second sample. And so we've got the basis then, we've got a really good basis of what we want. But there's a good list of changes. Maybe it's color, maybe it's texture or weight of the fabric, whatever it is. And so the second sample will be produced. So there's another 30 days. And then by that stage, I've got the secondary sample. I'm ready to go to production. And then usually we've got probably 6 to 8 weeks for production. Wow. So all in all, if there is a second sample involved, it can actually exceed 5 months. But generally speaking, you're around that 5-month time frame with start to finish of any one particular product.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this: so when do you watch like a Bond movie and you're saying, okay, I think this might be the next one I want to do, or maybe do you have people such as me like emailing you saying, hey, would you consider making something like this? I really liked I'm trying to think of one that you haven't made so far. The jacket that he wore in Spectre, for example. Would you is that something how you come up with an idea, I guess, or you kind of scrap it, say, well, look, this is the one I'm going to go with, or I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah. Look, I do get a lot of emails and requests, and I certainly do listen to those, and I certainly pay attention to what people want. But ultimately, I'm just going to be honest about this. I'm awfully selfish.
I know I am.
Basically, I just decide, okay, I've always wanted that, and I think it's time. I think other people would want it too. So,
yeah. Right.
So that whole decision-making process tends to be actually pretty selfish, really, because it's just stuff that I want.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if I want it and it's not really been made available, or perhaps there's not a great alternative out there, then my feeling is the chances are other people want it too. So
right. Now, I hear you. Like I said, let me just say that like all your ideas that everything you've released so far, like I said, I know I'm a big fan of. I know others are a big fan of. So,
thank you.
Yeah. So, we're always eager to see what you have cooked up next, or if and you've done re-releases of your jackets before, also, because is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, that's right. Well, as I say, off and on, it's about 5 years now that I've been doing this. Now, I haven't been doing. Now we just do one production run after the other because people want things and demand is there. But when I first started, we'd do a production run here and then a production run there.
Yeah.
So it's sort of been a little bit off and on in those early years. But the Harrington jacket in particular, we've done 5 production runs of that.
Wow. Okay.
Just 5. That's only doing 3 under the Royale banner, because I actually did rebrand it earlier on. Mm-hmm. So the funny story there is that originally I only ever intended to do that one jacket. Like I said, I just wanted one for myself. Yeah. That's how it started. Mm-hmm. So I did this small production run, and I wasn't thinking ahead or anything. So I actually called it the Solace jacket. Mm. So it was those first 2 smaller production runs. They were both labeled as Solace jackets, as in of solace. And so with that in mind, then I decided, but hang on a minute, like I might actually want to do other things here. So I thought I'd like to give this a go, or I'd like to give that a go. And then I thought, well, I can't really call it. I couldn't really use Solace as a brand name to cover these other jackets. It just didn't seem to make sense. So I ended up rebranding to Royale. And so under the Royale banner, we've done 3 production runs of the Harrington in particular, which is, of course, the most popular jacket. So.
Yeah, and like you said, that Harrington jacket, there are plenty of Harrington jackets out there, but there's not one that I've looked before online, there's not one that is as close to yours as possible. Some of them have the plaid in the back around behind the collar or on the inside, and I know none of us, we want the most screen accurate one we can possibly find, and that's what you do offer. So, yeah. And before I forget, your next upcoming one, we talked about this before, it's going to be the Quantum Talamone cardigan. And yes. That will be released, you said, around the end of May anyway, right?
That is just an estimate. It's always just a guesstimate.
Of course.
Approximate. I'm assuming it will be available late May. I'd be very surprised if it's earlier than that. Mm-hmm. Hopefully it's not too much later, though. I would say late May is a pretty good approximation when that'll be available. So.
Awesome. We I guess, is there any recommendations that you have for anybody? Because I know that they sell out just like that. They sell out so quickly.
Yeah, with that one in particular, we're going to do things a little bit differently. David Zaritsky at the Bond Experience, he's been very gracious in helping me with this one. What David's going to do is he's actually going to do a vlog review before they actually go on sale. So because for me it's knitwear, so it's kind of a little bit harder to size. You know, if you've got a jacket like the Harrington jacket or the Haiti jacket, it's pretty well black and white. You know, what is the measurement between the shoulders? What is the measurement underarm to underarm, and so on. So because it's a solid fabric, but with knitwear in particular, it's just that little bit harder to size. So what David's going to do graciously is review it beforehand, and then give everyone some sizing comments and advice as well. And everyone will have my sizing advice too, but David's been brilliant for really helping guys make decisions on sizing. So that'll be something that'll be very different with this production run.
Good. So,
but my advice would be that things do tend to sell out quickly.
Yes.
Because I have, you know, my customers are on an email database, so they'll get an email straight away as soon as these things become available. And so with that in mind, it's not unusual for me to sell half of a production run overnight.
Wow. Okay.
Through the first night.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to make a bit of a concerted effort this year to oversupply and try and keep more items in stock. You know, so I am producing more now than what I was last year. Just in the essence of trying to keep things available. The trouble with the cardigan is that it's been so expensive to produce that it's limited the numbers. So it's, you know, because obviously it's a very complicated item to produce. So with seamless transitions between knit styles and stuff like that. So it worked out a bit more expensive. So that with that in mind, I haven't been able to produce quite as many. So my recommendation would be, and now, you know, this is a spoiler, a bit of a plug here, I guess, but
yeah, go for it.
My recommendation would be to email subscribe at royalefilmwear.com. And so once you email that email address, then you'll be placed on the notification list, and you'll get that first heads up and fair warning.
Yes.
Basically.
Yeah. I know I had trouble last fall with the Harrington jacket, and I had the medium. No lie, I had the medium in the shopping cart, and I'm talking to somebody online, and he's like, "Yeah, you better get on that because they're selling out fast. I think they just sold out of mediums." I go back the next day, it was gone. So I was like, Yeah, but I ended up getting a small, and like I said, I think I misjudged my size, especially during the wintertime, how much weight I was going to gain, and and the small I can fit into on a good day. Of course, I got the medium for the Haiti jacket. That's definitely more forgiving. Your sizes are definitely spot on. I was thinking I'm still a younger guy who can lose the weight just like that, and unfortunately, that was my own mistake. And
trust me, I'm having the same problem. Once you hit that 30 mark, it just gets so much harder, doesn't it?
I'm just like, I used to be able to eat like this, and I could still run and burn it off the next day. Not so easy, but still, it goes to the fact that you need to get to royalfilmwear.com as soon as possible. Get on that emailing list, and you got to hop on that because they do sell out. Because there are lots of Bond film fans and Daniel Craig film fans like myself that want to dress like Bond and then want to go drink a martini and then try to pick up people in cardigans. But hey, that's all in the work. That's all in a day's work of a spy, right?
That's right.
So that's awesome, man. That's great. While I still have you, do you have a few minutes to stick around just for a little while longer?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to hop into any news this week, and that's okay. There really wasn't anything going on. There's a new Justice League poster. It's a movie poster, and the Lego Batman movie is going to be coming out next month. And did you have a chance to see that at all?
I haven't seen the Lego Batman movie, no.
Okay. Even as a Nolan Batman film fan, which I know you are, you will enjoy this because there are a lot of Easter eggs to the Nolan Batman films. Yes.
Oh, nice.
It's a treat. It's not. Went in thinking, okay, this is going to be a kids movie, but it's Batman, so why not? And I love Legos, and it's one of the better Batman film fans I've ever seen before. So, yeah. So make sure that you mark that off. That's going to be coming out next month. But I did want to talk about this real quick. I'm sorry to report that actor Clifton James passed over the weekend. Clifton James was famous for playing Sheriff J.W. Pepper in Live and Let Die and The Man with the Golden Gun. I played the clip at the very beginning. This comes courtesy of MI6 HQ Online. Clifton James was born in 1920 in Spokane, Washington. He was a decorated World War II vet. He was also U.S. Army Combat Infantry Platoon Sergeant. Of course, we all know him as Sheriff J.W. Pepper, in the two Roger Moore movies. I won't even try to do some lines in there. I will just say that, while Live and Let Die was not my favorite, Man with the Golden Gun was my favorite. And I went back and watched these clips right before the show, and I still laugh. I still chuckle at every time this man was on screen. I don't care how many times I've seen his performance on there. It's just, it's just, he's so funny. I guess he was kind of like a character actor in a way. I never saw him in anything else, but I always enjoyed it. I always enjoyed in Man with the Golden Gun when he's like, "You're not gonna," "You bet I am, boy." And just Roger Moore impersonating him, it was gold. So I did want to mention that may he rest in peace, and he definitely a big part of the James Bond films. So let's move into birthdays really quick here. Sean Bean celebrates a birthday on April 17th. He played Alec Trevelyan in GoldenEye. One of my personal favorite villains. Like I said, GoldenEye is still one of my favorite Bond films, but Sean Bean, I think he gets forgotten sometimes by sometimes just because, I don't know, maybe because we've had everybody. There's the Goldfingers out there. There's the Ernst Stavro Blofelds. There's Jaws, but Sean Bean, it's like you have a former British Secret Service agent who's like the best friend to James Bond, and he's going up against him. And somebody asked me online saying, what is my favorite on-screen fight with Bond? I'm like, it's 006 versus 007. That fight, sure, the one Inspector was really, really good. This one is just, It's like two friends going at it, and it's no holds bar. It's so good, and they're fighting on that GoldenEye satellite. Do you have any memories of Sean Bean as 006?
No, Ned Stark, yes. Mm-hmm. No, I'm going to have to go back and actually watch this particular fight. As I mentioned, I haven't watched the Pierce Brosnan films all that much over the years. So I might have to go back and refresh the memory on that one, I think, because that sounds like it's going to be pretty epic.
Yeah, that fight, I believe the director said, Martin Campbell, he's like, just go at it. And if you look, I said this before, that Bond's always compared to Bourne and so forth, and it's just how Bourne is with his fight sequences. It's just Matt Damon fighting. Pierce Brosnan did in 95, way before Bourne was even thought up on screen. And so if you want to see a really good fight, it's no CGI. It's just like two brothers fighting, and it's just it's so good. So try to YouTube it or just watch the whole movie, 'cause that's at least what I would do anyway. Eric Roberts celebrates a birthday on April 18th. He played Salvatore Moroni in The Dark Knight. If you remember, it's in The Dark Knight when Batman's trying to track down the Joker, and he's like holding the guy, saying, "Where is he?" And he drops the guy from the balcony and breaks his leg or whatever. He's like, from one professional to another, the fall, it wouldn't kill me. I'm counting on it, and just drops him. He's like, "Where is he?" And just things like that.
Well.
Thank you. I have to practice. I really lose my voice when I'm in costume trying to play that character. It really is hard. Something about Eric Roberts as a gangster. I mean, I've seen many other films of Eric Roberts, but this one was just like it's gold for him. He's playing he's a character actor. You might not know his name, but he's in majority of the Joker scenes. And he's also in the scenes with Harvey Dent also, so definitely check him out. He's a very, very good actor. Toby Stevens, he celebrates a birthday on April 21st. This is a villain that most of us might not want to remember. Gustav Graves in Die Another Day. Maybe not so much the movie. Toby Stevens, he played the main baddie in Die Another Day. He was, I know you haven't, have you seen Die Another Day before?
Yes, I have. I've seen him all.
Okay. I'm trying to describe his villain. He said that he was Colonel Moon. Spoiler alert, it's been out since 2002. But he said that he modeled his appearance off of James Bond. And he's like, that unjustifiable swagger. And he really, really hates James Bond, but at the same time, he admires him, though, too. And there's another good fight sequence, the sword fight that they have in there when they're in the fencing, halfway through before the film goes into invisible cars and windsurfing off ice glaciers and so forth. But I did enjoy Toby Stevens as a villain, but I just think it more came down to the story. I think that's the biggest thing with any movie is if you don't have a good story, and comes down also to the director, that if it's not put onto screen well enough, then you're probably not going to get the best performance out of your actors. But Toby Stevens, I won't discredit him. He did do a good job with what he had. Jack Nicholson celebrates a birthday on April 22nd. Oh, what can I say about Jack Nicholson? Do you know the name Jack Napier? Maybe even a guy named the Joker, by any chance, from Batman 1989?
No. I'm just going to flat out say no.
Okay.
I think I've heard of him, but I couldn't tell you who he is.
Okay. Batman 89. If GoldenEye is up here, Batman 89 is about the same level as that. Two of my favorites. Before the Nolan trilogy, before even the new Batman v Superman. Jack Nicholson as the Joker. If you've ever seen any Jack Nicholson film or any films of his, you know the kind of caliber actor he is. Him as the Joker, it's before Heath Ledger as the Joker, and this is he's more of a gangster. He's kind of a Cesar Romero Batman movie TV show Joker, but it's so dark. And his famous quote in there, and I'm sure you've heard this, is, "Tell me something, my friend. Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?" And and see, now I only have so much time at night, and I can only watch so many movies, and I know I want to go back and watch this. Thank God for YouTube. So if you haven't had a chance to check out Batman 1989, it's more of a Joker origin story and not so much spotlight on Bruce Wayne Batman. But it's really, really good. It does kind of have those James Bond aspects to it, especially the kind of, I guess, the gadgets, kind of how Bruce Wayne is and so forth. I think it's something a Bond film fan would enjoy. I really do. And it's actually at the same year that License to Kill was released, so it's kind of like I always say they did like kind of a handoff. Okay, Batman, you can take over for a little while James Bond's going to be on hiatus. Now it feels like, okay, who's going to get the baton now? Is it going to be Bond that's going to be Batman back to the screen? We'll see.
Maybe Bond is Batman. I mean, have you ever seen both of them in the same place at the same time?
Oh, well, I hear that a lot. Yeah, I really do. I don't know. I'll have to save that one for another day anyway. Really quick here, we had some questions on social media. Last week I said that MGM was decided to release, or this was actually way back for the 50th anniversary. They released the box set for James Bond Blu-rays, and they had all the Bond films, aside from two of them, Never Say Never Again and Casino Royale 1967. Now, I posted this online. I personally said that I'm glad that they weren't in there. I think MGM was right. There's a lady and a few others that are suing MGM, and I'm like, why? They did you a favor by not doing that. And I never saw the original Casino Royale, and I know that somewhere I own a DVD for Never Say Never Again. My dad was always on the hunt for that, especially come Christmas time, saying, can you guys get this for me, to my mom and I? And we could never find it because it was just one of those Bond films that technically doesn't exist in the Eon Productions. And I went back and watched it, and it's just, it's cheesy. It's a remake of Thunderball, and it doesn't even come close to Thunderball in my mind. But it is nice to see Sean Connery back on there. What are your thoughts on that, of those two films?
Okay, well, first of all, I didn't mind Never Say Never Again, but I'm totally with you in that it's not a Bond film. It just isn't. It's missing so much of the elements of what a Bond film is. Mm-hmm. And we go back to as well with Diamonds Are Forever in particular, and the later Roger Moore movies, where you've got someone, the person playing Bond, who's really hanging on. And that's kind of what it is to me.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad because it sort of ruins your memories of, what they did and how they were in their earlier movies, which were all brilliant. You know, it's just sort of to me, it's a movie that shouldn't have probably been made. So, and as much as I still did enjoy it, and it was good to see Sean back, as you said, it does taint your memory of those other better, proper performances of Bond.
Yeah,
a little. So I tend to agree that they were absolutely right to not include it in the box set. And the original Casino Royale, well, I think I got 15 or 20 minutes into that. I did try and find it, and I did try to sit down and watch it at one stage, and then I sort of realized what it was, and it's just this whole spoof of what it should have been. Mm-hmm. And, at that point, I'd read Casino Royale, I'd read the book, and I'd read the Fleming series. And so I just saw it as just, it's just very disrespectful really to the original content. So, that's not a Bond film.
Yeah, I've never gotten myself to watch Casino Royale, or the spoof of Casino Royale. I've heard, I know the little song that they have. I think, is it Burt Baccarat that did the theme song to that, if I'm not mistaken, I think.
I've blocked it out.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I always consider those two movies, especially Never Say Never Again. If you are a Star Wars fan, you know where I'm going with this. It is like the Star Wars prequels. Never happened. Never happened at all. It's like the Batman Schumacher films. I know that they're there, but I choose not to remember those because they're just, I'm not as big a fan of those. And, it is what it is. It was nice, I will say, to see Sean Connery in a tuxedo again. I like the idea of bringing in a new M, showing a older James Bond. I like those aspects of it. At the same time, though, it just something felt different. Maybe it was the Bond theme that wasn't in there. It was all little things. It just didn't have that feeling. Maybe it's the production, I guess.
As well, I'd just like to interject there, Brian.
Sure.
They made a point of competing with the other franchise,
Octopussy,
as well.
in 1983. Yep,
that's right. It's not like there was no other Bond films, and maybe Eon was on a hiatus and they were not producing anything. So, in many respects, Sean Connery did go out of his way there to really go into competition with the existing franchise, the guys who, let's face it, have the rights to do it. Mm-hmm. And this all goes back to Kevin McCleary, being a producer with Thunderball and so on. So it was just a legal entanglement really, and going back to the Fleming writings of Thunderball as well, if you know the backstory there. So
yeah, a really good documentary. I've mentioned this before in the show for people to check out. It's called Everything or Nothing, and it's a really incredible backstory to the James Bond films, even the very beginning of James Bond films that we didn't even know that went into production, and how Cubby Broccoli, Harry Saltzman, how they got everything started, how they work with Ian Fleming and Sean Connery, and like you said, the two competing Bond films, they really go into depth on that. And it really is a tragic story to hear about that. I mean, we all have love for Sean Connery. Yeah, he still is the iconic Bond, but for him to do that, for some reason he decided to. Yeah, it is disappointing. It really is.
I have seen that documentary, and that is brilliant. For anyone who's listening who hasn't seen it, highly recommend that you do watch Everything or Nothing. Mm-hmm. The Untold Story of James Bond. So I'm paraphrasing with what that's actually called, but it is brilliant, and they do go into that rivalry a lot with Roger Moore at the time, and so on. So obviously Sean did have a bit of a falling out with the producers, but those guys, Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman, they risked everything. To produce Bond and put Bond on the screen. So we're all obviously indebted to what they did, and obviously it's great to still see Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson keeping it in the family.
Yes, that is definitely what's so great about this. It is a family-owned business, and they always respect, I think they always take into consideration what Cubby or what Harry would have done. So,
yes.
And it's very evident. They always pay little tributes to there, and you got to love the Michael G. Wilson cameos in there. He's very clever how he does his cameos in there too. And he used to be a writer, and before he was executive producing also, going all the way back to, I think it was The Spy Who Loved Me, if I'm not mistaken. So, So anyway, great documentary to check out. If you want to watch Never Say Never Again, go for it. Casino Royale. We're going to scratch that. So, some people were also commenting that, it's okay. Some people said, good. They're just nope. It makes absolute sense not to include them and so forth. Let's see. Other questions we had on here. If you could, I wanted to say this one for you. If you could be transported into any Bond film, which movie would it be, and what character would you be? I had to think about this one. I'm still thinking about this.
I would have to be Dr. No when Ursula Andress is coming up off the big.
Okay.
What else is there?
Man, I'll compete with you on this one with Casino Royale, okay? I will say when Bond wakes up and he's still at the clinic, or when he's healing anyway from an unfortunate incident of something being scratched by Mr. Lashif, and he wakes up to Vesper, played by Ava Green, and I'm like, I would trade places with him. Don't tell my wife. Technically, she does know that. But I would say that's because she's she's the high holy Bond girl in my mind. I mean, I love Ursula Andress, but Vesper Lynd, oh yeah. So I was thinking, okay, well maybe an action scene. No, I mean that would be that's You helped me think about that one, so thank you. Very good question. That's from Sean Hilton online. Another question was, let's see, who is Batman's son? We don't have time for that one. What do I think of Moonraker and For Your Eyes Only? What do we think of Moonraker and For Your Eyes Only? And what do we like better? And this comes from Exotic Commander.
Okay. So I just want to say from the beginning, as somebody who's read the Fleming books, it's part of the reason I'm not a huge Roger Moore era fan, is because they strayed so far away from the books in those movies. And Moonraker in particular is one of those movies where it is seriously it's nothing like the book, nothing at all.
Yeah,
and which is a real shame. I sort of look at that as, obviously Ian Fleming was around for the first couple of films, but after his passing, they did stray and take a lot of liberties during that era. And as much as I love the films, don't get me wrong, but as anybody will tell you, often when you read the book, then you read the film. I mean, there's a certain there's a certain feeling there that perhaps they could have just stuck to the original story a bit more, but Moonraker in particular is incredibly sensationalized, and it's very different.
I'm holding back right now. I really am. Yeah.
Yeah.
Moonraker is. I started a thing on here, or guilty pleasure James Bond movies. Or just one. Somebody came online. It was actually John from Iconic Alternatives. He said, there's just some movies that you can just say, well, I kind of feel like watching this. This is the kind of mood I'm in right now. And if Moonraker happens to be on, or I'm just like, I don't know what else to watch. Yeah, I turn on Moonraker and I just enjoy it for what it is. For your eyes only, though, I will say you don't have to force me to watch that one, because I think it's one of my favorite. It's up there with The Spy Who Loved Me, maybe just a little bit lower. For Your Eyes Only, it's a great Bond movie. I liked, especially right after Moonraker, I liked how they just brought everything back to Earth. See what I did there? It was just try to locate the ATAC tracking system. You weren't worried about Moonraker lasers or space shuttles or anything like that, giant anacondas or what have you, or pythons. It was more kind of had a feeling of From Russia with Love in a way, to a point. As much as Roger could play that. His coldest kill, I would say, was when he pushed the car down the hill. He's like, "You left this with Ferrara," and he drops the pin in there. He had no head for heights. Yes. And I think that's like, wow, okay, we've never really seen that from Roger at all. Not really too much. So, and I like that. I really did. That's one of my favorites, actually, when it comes to a Roger Moore James Bond film.
Absolutely.
But I mean, like I said, there's so many different Bond films out there. I can watch Quantum of Solace and enjoy it for what it is. Maybe not the story's not the best, because people are like, well, it doesn't make much sense, and it's coming off Casino, or it wasn't as well. I'm like, yeah, well, but still, I still enjoy it, and I think that's what's so great, specifically about Bond films. I know we have 24 to choose from. There's one for every day of the week, I don't know, something like that anyway. So there are a lot of good Bond movies out there. So as we wrap this up, I did want to mention that a reminder that May is around the corner. I've decided that I'm going to be doing a tournament of all the Bond and Batman women. There will be more details to come. I will be entitling it for now. The working title is Wonder Women, Bond and Batman Girls. And like I said, there are 24 Bond films and many Batman movies. My wife might not be sitting in on this one at all, because she loves Bond girls and she likes Bond movies. There are a lot of women to talk about here, but I want to leave it not just to me. I want to leave it to the fans, kind of like how we did the March Madness. I want to leave it to everybody to choose who their favorites are, because Wonder Woman is actually right around the corner. And I'm really getting excited about this movie. So that wraps it up for this episode of the Batman vs. James Bond show. Please subscribe on Spreaker and iTunes, rated 5 stars. Leave a nice review for me on there. I would very much appreciate it. The biggest thing I always ask is that you share the show with your friends, your family, and anyone that is a fan of Batman and Bond. Just let them know, hey, there's a Batman vs. James Bond show out there. The best of both worlds, the best, iconic superheroes out there. Yeah, Bond is a superhero. Daniel, thank you so much for being on the show. This is your time to plug your site, plug your company, Royal Filmwear. Where can everybody find you?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thanks very much, Brian, for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure. Okay, so the best thing to do is you can go to the storefront, which is royalefilmwear.storeenvy. It's actually through Store Envy. But if you just Google Royale Filmwear, that's Royale with an E on the end, that'll take you there to the storefront. But probably more importantly is if you're interested in seeing what's upcoming, what's about to be released, and to get the heads up as soon as it's available, it's really important that you join the notification list. So that notification email is subscribe@royalefilmwear.com. So that's really the best way to get Royale Filmwear products.
Yes. And like I said before, Daniel's got a lot of products on there. When something comes out, you got to make sure that if you're not on the mailing list, you need to head over to the website right away, because they sell out right away. So make sure that you get on that. And follow me on all the various social media networks, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Batman vs. Bond. Find the show at batmanvsbond.com and on the BS Podcast Network. And be sure to check out all the other great programming on there, including Science Faction Podcast, Unpopular Culture Podcast, and Nerds with Words Podcast. And don't forget to buy a Batman vs. Bond t-shirt. Rock it with the Harrington or Haiti jacket. Why not? No. So, Daniel, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Great talking to you, pal. Hopefully we get to talk again soon. So, and we will keep in touch.
Thanks very much, Brian.
Yep.
It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. And like James Bond, I will return. Until next time, I'm Brian Thomas. Thanks for listening and have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.
The preceding podcast is part of the BS Podcast Network. Visit bspodcastnetwork.com for more shows just like this one, and perhaps a few that are just a little bit better.